The iron is cold against her throat. Bernice is 29, and she feels the collar's weight every time she pulls in a breath, metal pressing into her windpipe like a hand that never lets go. The taste is worse. Rust, old sweat, and the faint metallic tang of something that used to be blood. This collar has circled 100 necks before hers. She can feel that history on her skin. 17 days ago, she was queen of Cappadocia, not a figurehead, a ruler of a kingdom that had stayed independent for 3 centuries, a commander who kept an army fighting Rome for 7 brutal years. She was the woman who looked Emperor Tiberius's legate in the eye and said plainly, Cappadocia would burn before it bowed. Now she kneels on a stone floor in a Roman camp. Her wrists are chained behind her back. Her hair is gone, shaved down to rough stubble. In Rome, they call a captive queen's long hair a weapon, something she might twist into a rope and deny them their prize before they can display her properly. Outside her cell, the camp is waking. Dawn orders barked in Latin, horses snorting as they're led to water, the clatter of straps and armor and packed kits, everything preparing for the long march west. The march to Rome, the march to the triumph. Her cell stinks of urine and old straw, and something underneath it, something sweet and rotting she has trained herself not to name. 3 days ago, they dragged the last prisoner out by the ankles. The body is gone. The smell stayed behind, a reminder that usefulness is the only shield a captive gets. A guard watches from behind the iron bars. His eyes move over her with a look she recognizes now, something that isn't quite lust. Colder than that, an inspection, an evaluation of function, what she can be used for, how she needs to look when she finally walks in chains through Rome's streets. Bernice is beginning to understand something that Roman poets never wrote down. The triumph itself isn't the punishment. The triumph is the finale. The punishment is everything before it. The months of captivity, the slow preparation, the long journey from the edge of empire to its heart. The triumph is one day of public humiliation. What comes before it is systematic destruction, stretched out as long as Rome needs. Footsteps. A man approaches the bars, mid-40s, wearing a senior officer's armor, his face carrying the bored, practiced cruelty Bernice has already learned to fear. He doesn't introduce himself. He doesn't need to. The guards straighten when he arrives, and that tells her his rank. "You are the Cappadocian," he says. Not a question. The one who killed the legate's nephew at Mazacca. "I gave the order," Bernice says. Her voice surprises her, steady, almost calm. "My archers carried it out. He died bravely, if that matters to Rome." It does not. He studies her through the bars the way the guard did, like she's a piece of captured equipment, valuable only if it still works. "What matters," he says, "is that you will walk in Germanicus's triumph 8 months from now. You will be displayed as proof of Roman victory, proof that even queens who defy the legions are eventually brought to heel." 8 months. The words drop into her mind like stones. 8 months of being whatever Rome decides she should be. 8 months of surviving on Rome's terms, just to be paraded through the city and then disposed of. Because that's how this ends for most captives. Everyone knows it. They just don't say it out loud. "What happens to me?" she asks, "between now and then?" The officer smiles. It's not friendly. It's not even personal. It's the smile of a man describing a procedure. "You will be prepared," he says. "Prepared for the triumph. Prepared to perform your role properly. This preparation takes many forms. Some you will find educational. some you will find less so. He gestures. The cell door opens. A guard steps in, grabs Bernice's arm and hauls her upright. His grip is hard enough to bruise. "The general wishes to see you," the officer says, almost casually. "He has specific plans for the Cappadocian queen. You should feel honored. Most captives go through standard procedures. You have attracted personal attention." Personal attention. Bernice doesn't fully understand the depth of those words yet, but she feels it anyway, like a shadow passing over her skin. They lead her out into morning light that hurts after days of darkness. Through the ordered chaos of the camp, soldiers loading wagons, tightening harnesses, checking blades. Men pause to stare as she passes. Other captives stand chained in lines, waiting for transport. And then she sees it. A wagon loaded with plunder from her kingdom. Gold, silver, temple offerings. Noble jewelry stripped from bodies that died defending what was theirs. Her crown sits near the top, the diadem she wore when she addressed her people, when she led her army, when she still believed courage could hold back the greatest power the world had ever known. It rests there now like a discarded trinket. She doesn't cry. Tears do nothing here. Tears only teach Romans where to press. So she memorizes the wagon's position, the soldiers guarding it, the route through the camp, every face, every insignia, every detail. Information is the only weapon she has left, and she intends to use it. Because what you're about to hear, what Bernice is walking into right now, was cleaned out of the histories that praise Roman triumphs as glorious spectacle. The poets loved the golden chariots and the cheering crowds. The historians loved the speeches and the painted faces. They did not love the months of preparation. Tonight, you're going to learn what the triumph actually required. Not the single day the textbooks describe, but the long, deliberate destruction that came first. And Bernice, former queen, current property, is being led toward a general who has been waiting a long time to claim his victory. 8 months of preparation. 8 months that will test everything she has left. And I'm going to tell you exactly what Rome planned to do with her. But before I tell you what the Romans did to Bernice, and to the other captured queens who walked in chains through their triumphs, I need to take you back, because you can't understand what's about to happen to her without understanding the machine that will process her. The Roman triumph was never just a parade. It was a religious ceremony, a political statement, and a psychological weapon rolled into one overwhelming spectacle. For a single day, the general was treated as something close to divine. His face painted red like Jupiter's statue, his person declared sacred. His achievements shouted into the streets so the entire city could breathe in the message: Rome wins. Rome always wins. But triumphs weren't handed out like favors. The Senate tightened the rules as Rome grew, because glory was power, and power was dangerous. A general needed proper command authority. He needed a decisive victory. He needed territory won or an enemy crushed. And he needed a number, the kind of number senators could cite with straight faces. At least 5,000 enemies killed in a single battle. And he needed captives. Not ordinary prisoners. Common soldiers could be sold as slaves, distributed as rewards, executed if it was convenient. They were interchangeable. A triumph required proof, trophies with names. A captured commander was valuable. A captured king was more valuable. And a captured queen, recognizable, royal, reduced to chains, was the ultimate prize. A living statement that Roman power respected no crown, no bloodline, no dignity. That created a brutal incentive in how royalty was treated. They had to survive until the triumph. They had to look like who they were, so the crowd could understand the victory. They had to be broken enough to walk when ordered, stand when ordered, and endure the jeering without disrupting the script. But they also had to be available. Roman officers who fought through years of war believed they had earned rewards. The general believed he had the right to sample his trophies before he displayed them. The soldiers believed conquest should pay them back in more ways than coin. This wasn't random cruelty. It was organized, methodical, refined across generations. Rome didn't just conquer kingdoms, it built systems for what came after. There were officials assigned to manage captives, protocols that decided who had access to which prisoner, when, and for what purpose. Hierarchies that determined which royal bodies were reserved for a general's personal use and which could be distributed as privileges among senior staff. The most valuable captives, kings and queens meant to headline the triumph, received a special kind of care. Their bodies were protected. Their minds were not. They were kept separate from common prisoners, fed well enough to avoid sickness, housed in conditions that prevented disfigurement, maintained like valuable cargo. Because a queen who arrived in Rome too injured to walk was useless, and a queen who arrived still proud, still defiant, still carrying her dignity like armor, failed to demonstrate Roman dominance. The ideal captive was visibly royal.